The moment that changed everything. The Galactic War Council chamber buzzed with tension, the air thick with the weight of what was about to be decided. Supreme Admiral Sir Vaz of the Vorthan Dominion stood at the center, his luminescent exoskeleton glinting under the Grand Hall's overhead lights. The assembled warlords, strategists, and high-ranking officials of the Dominion watched in anticipation as Sir Vaz's long, clawed fingers hovered over the galactic map, highlighting a small but troublesome sector. The sector in question: the Outer Rim colonies of humanity. Sir Vaz took a long, deliberate pause, surveying the holographic display with what could only be described as arrogant amusement. The Vorthan Dominion, one of the most feared empires in the known galaxy, had encountered many species, some powerful, some weak, but none had ever truly surprised them. Humans. They were primitive deathworlders, a species that had barely scratched the surface of interstellar warfare. Surely, they were not a real threat. A deep, guttural voice echoed from the council seats. They refused to surrender, growled Warlord Kaizor, his massive, armored frame shifting impatiently. Even when offered the mercy of subjugation, their defiance is irritating. The chamber murmured in agreement. Sir Vaz let out a slow hiss of amusement. Typical of lesser species, he mused, his claw tapping against the holographic controls. They don't understand their place in the universe. Their so-called spirit blinds them to reality. We will crush them, swiftly and efficiently. A new voice interrupted, one that carried the weight of experience rather than pride. You think that? Supreme Strategist Skull muttered, his reptilian gaze fixed on the hologram. But have you actually studied them? Sir Vaz turned, his mandibles clicking. What is there to study? Their fleet is outmatched. Their weapons, outdated. Their military discipline, chaotic. Skull sighed and gestured toward the holographic interface. With a flick of his elongated fingers, a classified battle report appeared in front of the council. The data feed showed past skirmishes with human forces, encounters with other empires, and most concerning of all, incidents where humanity had faced overwhelming odds and won. The warlords scoffed. Is this meant to scare us? One of them sneered. Skull didn't answer immediately. Instead, he zoomed in on a particular battle, the one that had sent whispers of fear through the Dominion's intelligence network. Let me tell you a story, he said at last, his voice eerily calm. The chamber fell silent. 15 cycles ago, the fall of the Zarnathi Empire. In the distant reaches of the galaxy, the Zarnathi were a force to be reckoned with. Powerful, intelligent, and brutally efficient, they had conquered countless systems. Their ships were the pinnacle of technological perfection, their tactics methodical and precise. And yet, they were gone. Not destroyed, not annihilated, not wiped from existence by some overwhelming superweapon. No, they had been broken. And the ones who did it, the humans. The recording flickered to life, revealing the final moments of the Zarnathi fleet. The battle had begun predictably. The Zarnathi, confident in their tactical superiority, had launched a full-scale assault on a human-controlled star system. The human defenses should have crumbled. The battle should have been over in mere hours. But humans didn't fight wars the way the rest of the galaxy did. The footage showed something unnerving. Human ships moving erratically, seemingly out of control. Their formations were nonsensical, their movements unpredictable. Their malfunctioning, one of the Zarnathi commanders had scoffed. They were not malfunctioning. The next few minutes of the footage sent a wave of discomfort through the Vorthan warlords. The human fleet, though vastly outnumbered, moved with chaotic precision. They jammed enemy sensors with music transmissions. They used their own damaged ships as kinetic projectiles. They hacked into the enemy's network just to broadcast absurd, nonsensical messages across all communication channels. One of the Zarnathi warships had been brought to a standstill when their entire targeting system was overridden by what appeared to be a human child's educational show. The War Council watched as Zarnathi officers panicked, their elite soldiers collapsing under the sheer mental exhaustion of trying to predict human tactics. Then came the psychological warfare. Human Marines dropped into enemy command centers, unarmed, wearing bright red suits and carrying nothing but books. The Zarnathi, expecting an ambush, hesitated. The humans, they threw the books at them and ran. A pause. Books. Someone in the chamber whispered in confusion. Skull nodded grimly. They called it knowledge bombing. The books contained philosophy, paradoxes, riddles, mental warfare. The Zarnathi, accustomed to pure logic, tried to decipher the meaning behind the attack, and in doing so, lost precious time. Another holographic image appeared. The final Zarnathi battleship, its crew in full mutiny, broadcasted a single, chilling transmission before self-destructing. "We don't understand. We will never understand. The humans are madness." The chamber fell deathly silent. Skull turned back to service, his reptilian eyes locked onto the Supreme Admirals. They didn't just defeat the Zarnathi. They broke them. Admiral, they reduced one of the greatest empires in the galaxy to a cautionary tale, a footnote in history. Zervas didn't speak. For the first time, uncertainty crept into his cold, calculating expression. Skull's voice dropped to a near whisper. "And now, you want to go to war with them." Silence stretched across the war chamber. Then, a soft chime interrupted the moment. Zervas turned sharply. The holographic interface flickered, displaying an incoming transmission from the human sector. It contained only 2 words. "Try us." A shiver ran through the council. Zervas exhaled slowly, his clawed fingers tightening around the console. The humans had seen the threat coming. They had been watching. They were waiting. And they were daring the Dominion to make a move. The Supreme Admiral's mandibles twitched. For the first time in his life, he felt afraid. The war they never expected. The silence in the war chamber was heavy, suffocating. Supreme Admiral Zervas's fingers curled into a slow, deliberate fist, his mandibles twitching in contemplation. The human message still lingered on the holographic screen before him, taunting in its sheer audacity. "Try us." No bluster, no excessive threats, just 2 words, a dare, a challenge, a declaration of absolute confidence. The assembled Vorthan warlords exchanged glances, their expressions ranging from bemusement to unease. They were an empire that had conquered over 1,000 worlds, annihilated species that had stood in their way, and dismantled civilizations without so much as a second thought. Yet here they were, hesitating, because of humans. Zervas let out a slow breath before finally speaking. "Send the fleet." The command was met with scattered reactions, some eager, some wary, but none dared to oppose him. The Vorthan Dominion did not back down. They had ruled through force for centuries, and they would not let a backwater species of deathworlders challenge them. Even so, a small voice in Zervas's mind whispered, "Are we sure?" Skull, the supreme strategist, remained motionless. His yellow reptilian eyes did not leave the screen, where the human message still burned. The warlords began issuing orders, mobilizing fleets, preparing strategies. The assault on human colonies would begin within the next cycle. And deep in his soul, Skull felt something was about to go horribly wrong. Human space, Outer Colony Defense Network. The moment the Vorthan fleet entered human-controlled space, they realized something was off. They had expected resistance. They had expected fleets scrambling to defend their colonies. They had expected panicked distress signals and a disorganized attempt at last-minute diplomacy. Instead, they got silence. No distress calls. No scrambling human warships. No diplomats begging for negotiations. It was as if the humans had been waiting for them. The first Vorthan warships entered orbit over Proxima 9, a small but strategically vital colony. The planet's surface was eerily still. No visible signs of panic, No desperate evacuations. The humans weren't running. They weren't hiding. They were waiting. High Commander Xilvor sneered. Fools. He motioned for his fleet to begin descent. Hundreds of landing crafts deployed from the Vorthan warships, descending through the human atmosphere in precise formation. The plan was simple. Storm the capital, establish planetary control, and send a message to the rest of human space. But as the Vorthan soldiers landed, they noticed something strange. The streets were empty, the buildings untouched. There were no defenses. Xilvor frowned. Something was wrong. Then the screens activated. Holographic projectors hidden in the city flickered to life, displaying the face of a human officer. He had a casual stance, arms crossed, an almost amused smirk on his face. "Hey there, guys," he greeted. "You must be the new visitors." The Vorthan soldiers raised their weapons in alarm. "My name's Commander Elias Carter," the human continued, "and I'd like to be the first to officially welcome you to Proxima 9. The message was too calm, too relaxed. Xilvor snarled, stepping forward. "Surrender immediately, human, and your colony will be spared." Elias tilted his head. "Surrender? Oh, no, I think you misunderstand, buddy." He grinned. "You're the ones who are trapped here with us." Then, all at once, the city came to life. The human trap. The first explosion ripped through the Vorthan ranks before they even knew what was happening. Not from missiles, not from gunfire, but from seemingly random objects around the city. Street lamps, garbage cans, even vending machines. Landmines? No, something worse. Hacked infrastructure. Everything the Vorthan soldiers had assumed was normal city infrastructure had been repurposed into traps, distractions, and weapons. The street lamps flashed in randomized, blinding frequencies that scrambled the Vorthan's optical sensors. The billboards displayed hypnotic optical illusions, sending commands into their neural links that caused momentary confusion and disorientation. The vending machines spit out thousands of cans at high velocity, pelting the soldiers with relentless force, throwing their formations into chaos. And then came the drones. Not war drones, not military crafts. Civilian drones, thousands of them. Personal delivery drones, maintenance bots, even cleaning robots, all of them hacked. They swarmed the Vorthan invaders, not with weapons, but with pure disruption. They flew into engines, causing power failures. They delivered nonsense messages through enemy communication channels. They blasted out blaring sirens and human music, disorienting the Vorthan squads. The invasion hadn't even started, and already the Vorthan ground forces were collapsing into chaos. Xilvor roared in frustration, firing his plasma rifle wildly at the drones. "This is nothing," he barked. "Regroup. Form defensive." His voice cut off as something massive moved behind him. A shadow emerged from the alleyways. Metal. Thick armor plating. A human combat mech. Not just any mech. A construction mech repurposed for war. A behemoth, 20 meters tall, with graffiti painted across its chest in bold, defiant human letters. Big CHUNGUS. Xilvor's eyes widened in pure, unfiltered confusion. What in the name of the void is a big chungus? The mech smashed through an entire platoon of Vorthan soldiers before he could finish the sentence. The galactic broadcast. Back on the Vorthan flagship, Admiral Xervas watched in horror as his invasion turned into a humiliating catastrophe. This is not possible," he muttered. The human commander appeared again on the screens, sipping a brightly colored drink through a straw. "Oh, you guys are still here?" Carter asked, raising an eyebrow. "Look, I appreciate the effort, I really do. But this isn't gonna work out for you." Xervas felt rage boiling in his chest. "You think this is funny, human?" Carter chuckled. "A little, but mostly. It's a lesson." The screen zoomed out, revealing a second wave of human forces waiting beyond the city, a fleet of mechanized walkers, human soldiers in adaptive combat suits, and orbital satellites already adjusting targeting parameters. "We let you land," Carter said, "because we wanted you to see something." He leaned forward, his grin widening. "You don't invade a death world and expect it to play fair." Zervas felt a chill run down his spine. The human raised his hand and snapped his fingers. Across the battlefield, a single phrase appeared on every hacked Vorthan visor display. Uno reverse card activated. And then the real battle began. Humanity's counterstrike. The war room aboard the Vorthan Dominion's flagship, Vengeance of the Void, was in absolute chaos. Officers barked orders, analysts scrambled to make sense of the data flooding in, and Supreme Admiral Xervas stood frozen, mandibles twitching, unable to comprehend what was unfolding on the surface of Proxima 9. The invasion, what was supposed to be a swift, decisive strike, had turned into a nightmare. The Vorthan fleet had committed massive resources to this assault. Thousands of soldiers, cutting-edge weapons, advanced warships, all carefully arranged in a textbook planetary conquest operation. And none of it mattered. Because humans didn't fight by the textbook. Instead of an organized resistance, the humans had unleashed pandemonium. Instead of fear and surrender, they had answered with mockery and madness. They had lured the Vorthan into a trap. And now, they were springing it. The reality of fighting humans. From orbit, the Vorthan warships had perfectly clear visuals of the battlefield, and what they saw defied all conventional logic. Their soldiers weren't being eliminated by superior firepower or overwhelming numbers. No, it was far worse. They were losing their minds. The psychological warfare was relentless. The mech labeled Big CHUNGUS wasn't just a machine of war. It was a walking meme, its external speakers blasting an ancient Earth tune on repeat. "Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me." The horrifying part. The Vorthan's neural translators didn't understand the lyrics. And that made it even worse. It was a thought virus, a sequence of meaningless but endlessly looping sounds that burrowed into their minds like an infectious parasite. Soldiers were collapsing in confusion, gripping their helmets, trying desperately to make sense of what they were hearing. Then, another tactical atrocity unfolded before their eyes. The human Marines, unarmed, unarmored, had deliberately charged into enemy formations, waving silly signs with phrases like, "Don't shoot. We have plot armor." Diplomatic immunity activated. Please check galactic laws before firing. This is a cutscene. Your weapons are temporarily disabled. The Vorthan, trained for structured combat, hesitated. Their entire tactical foundation crumbled as their targeting AIs refused to classify the approaching humans as threats. Then, the second wave hit. The Vorthan fleet's long-range scanners detected projectiles incoming from deep space, massive high-speed objects, hurtling toward their orbiting warships at alarming velocities. Zervas leaned forward, his claws digging into the command console. "Are they missiles?" he demanded. An officer checked the readings. "No, Supreme Admiral." "Then what are they?" A pause. Then, in a trembling voice, the officer responded, "Refrigerators." Zervas's entire body stiffened. "What?" "Sir, they're launching kitchen appliances at relativistic speeds." Zervas turned slowly, his mandibles clicking in sheer disbelief. "They're attacking us with household objects." The officer gulped. "Yes, Supreme Admiral. And they appear to be." He hesitated. "They appear to be equipped with maneuvering thrusters and guidance systems." Silence. A long, horrifying silence. Then, another officer gasped. The debris field. The humans, in their boundless insanity, had calculated their projectile trajectories so perfectly that the Vorthan fleet's own defensive debris, destroyed fighters, shattered hull fragments, and broken satellites, were redirected toward their own ships. They had turned orbital trash into a precision-guided kinetic bombardment. The Vorthan had no countermeasures for this. Zervas felt an unfamiliar sensation crawl up his spine. Panic. And then, the human commander's voice returned, casual, almost amused. Humanity's response. The screens flickered back to life, revealing Commander Elias Carter, sipping from a brightly colored, oversized cup labeled Space SLUSHIE, 128 ounces, max refill. Well, that escalated quickly, Carter said cheerfully. Zervas clenched his jaw. What is wrong with your species? Carter grinned. Oh, buddy, where do I even start? The holographic feed zoomed out, showing human reinforcements arriving. Not warships, not in the traditional sense, but cargo freighters. Are those supply ships? One of the Vorthan officers whispered in confusion. Carter gave a slow nod, sipping his drink. Oh yeah, but see, here's the thing. The human transmission shifted, showing a detailed scan of the freighter's contents. The Vorthan's secondary monitors translated the cargo manifest. 400,000 metric tons of industrial-grade duct tape, 2.7 million gallons of chili sauce, 30,000 copies of Shrek 2 in outdated disc format. A single crate labeled Emergency Do Not Open contains 3 geese. Zervas's breathing stopped. The officer beside him stared in horror. I don't understand. Carter took another long sip, then set his drink down. Oh, you will, he said. You see, we plan ahead. He gestured to the list. You have no idea what we can do with this stuff, and by the time you figure it out, it'll be too late. Zervas knew that was true, because nothing in this war was making sense anymore. The beginning of the end. The Battle of Proxima 9 was not a battle at all. It was a lesson that no one invades a death world and gets away with it. The Vorthan fleet, once feared across the galaxy, was now the subject of a rapidly spreading viral meme across human space. Footage of Vorthan soldiers being bombarded with vending machine soda cans, combat mechs labeled with ridiculous human jokes, and warships being taken down by spaceborne refrigerators had already reached millions of viewers. It was over. And yet, humanity wasn't done yet. Carter leaned forward, voice dropping to a whisper. This is your last chance, Admiral. Turn back now, or we get creative. Zervas swallowed hard. For the first time in his long, decorated military career, he considered surrendering. The breaking point. Supreme Admiral Zervas stood in the war chamber aboard the Vengeance of the Void, staring at the holoscreen in utter disbelief. The battle for Proxima 9, a conflict that should have been over in mere hours, had turned into a spectacle of sheer absurdity. But absurdity, Zervas realized, was humanity's greatest weapon. They were fighting without rules. They were rewriting the very definition of warfare. And worst of all, they were enjoying themselves. Commander Elias Carter had mocked him, humiliated his forces, and now sat on screen sipping his enormous drink like this was a casual social call. And Zervas had no idea what to do next. His warships were still intact, his forces still operational, but morale was collapsing faster than their battle strategy. His officers, seasoned veterans who had seen empires fall, were completely unprepared for this level of chaotic warfare. Because how could they be prepared? Nothing about humanity's tactics made sense. Nothing about their strategies fit any conventional war doctrine. And worst of all, his entire fleet had become a laughingstock across the galactic network in real time. The humans were broadcasting the battle. Across every known network, footage was spreading. Millions, billions of sentient beings across the galaxy were watching, in horrified fascination, as an empire-destroying fleet was being humiliated by weaponized vending machines, relativistic speed refrigerators, psychological warfare in the form of ancient human memes, a mechanized war machine labeled Big CHUNGUS, and chili sauce, for some reason. Zervas exhaled slowly, his claws tightening around the console. He needed to do something. And fast. The desperate gamble. Pull the fleet back, Cervez commanded, his voice a low growl. His officers looked at him, mandibles twitching in shock. "Admiral," one of them stammered. We do not retreat." "This is not a retreat," Cervez snapped. "It is a tactical withdrawal. We need tow." A new warning klaxon blared across the bridge. "Supreme Admiral." Another officer turned, his exoskeleton visibly trembling. "The humans. They're advancing." Cervez froze. "Advancing?" The officer nodded weakly. "Sir, they are moving toward us." Cervez turned back to the holo display and felt something cold settle in his gut. Because the humans weren't just advancing. They were charging. Their warships, still vastly outnumbered, were moving at full speed toward the Vorthan fleet, and it made no tactical sense whatsoever. "They are not moving in formations," another officer stammered. They are just charging like lunatics," Cervez whispered, his mind racing. He turned to Tskal, the supreme strategist, the only officer on the bridge who had remained eerily silent. "You studied them," Cervez said. "You've been warning us about this. What is their strategy?" Tskal didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stared at the screen, his yellow reptilian eyes narrowed. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and grim. "They are doing what humans always do," he said. "They are about to make this personal." Cervez's mandibles clicked in frustration. "What does that mean?" "It means," Tskal exhaled slowly, "that humans do not wage war for conquest. They do not fight for dominance. They fight because you made them angry." Cervez stiffened. And then, the human comms came online again. The final warning. Commander Elias Carter appeared on screen, still smirking. But this time, there was something different in his expression. The amusement was still there, but beneath it, there was cold, calculated fury. "All right, listen up, bug boys," Carter said, setting down his space slushy. "We had our fun, but now you pissed us off." Cervez's mandibles twitched. "We will not." "Oh, shut up," Carter interrupted. Cervez stared in disbelief. Did a human commander just tell a Supreme Admiral to shut up? Carter leaned forward. "Let me explain something to you," he said. "You came here thinking you'd break us, that we'd roll over and let you take what you wanted, that we'd surrender because you have bigger guns." A pause. "But see, that's where you messed up." Carter's expression darkened. "Because you don't invade a death world species and get away with it." Cervez felt something twist in his stomach. "This was your chance," Carter continued. "Your one chance to walk away. We gave you every opportunity to turn back, but you just had to keep pushing." The comms shifted, revealing real-time data from human ships, and Cervez felt pure terror for the first time in his life. Because they had activated something he had never seen before. The human fleet's energy levels were skyrocketing. Somehow, every single human warship was suddenly pushing beyond its known energy output. Their weapons were overcharging. Their engines were overclocking to absurd levels. And worst of all, their shields weren't even up. The humans had completely abandoned defense. They weren't fighting anymore. They were rushing the Vorthan fleet with the sole purpose of ending this. Carter's voice was deadly calm. "You want a war," he whispered. "Fine. You're about to see what happens when a death world species decides you're not worth keeping around." The screen cut out, and Cervez knew. It was too late. The first strike. The human fleet collided with the Vorthan warships in a blinding flash of chaos. Human battlecruisers performed impossible maneuvers, ramming through Vorthan formations at speeds that should have been suicidal. Human fighter squadrons wove through defenses like madmen, ignoring formation tactics, pulling maneuvers that broke the laws of physics. The Vorthan fleet tried to adapt. They failed. Because humans didn't fight fair. They hacked targeting systems, forcing Vorthan warships to lock onto their own allies. They jammed communications with an unholy mixture of heavy metal, screaming goats, and historical Earth speeches played at random intervals. And then, they deployed the geese. Aboard the Vengeance of the Void, Servas barely had time to process the alert before the screaming began. They did organic warfare units. They EVUR, Vodoair. They we wanted to stop Han King. Servas felt his soul leave his body. This was not a war. This was the universe's most elaborate mugging. And humanity was winning.